Here. I'll wait till everybody stops talking. Okay. Councilmember Zine and myself are present, and we have a quorum. I'm going to ask that, without objection, we put item 3 and item 6 on consent. Mr. Zine, that's good with you, I presume?
I got a question, number 3. What's the necessity for that position?
And then I will leave it off consent then.
Yeah, we're not going to consent to that.
Item 6 is on consent.
Let me look at 6. Prohibit the sale of commercial. Yeah, that's fine.
Item number 7, we're going to continue and request a CAO report on the motion. And we're going to begin with item number 8.
Number 8.
So if we could have staff come up for number 8 and
For the record, on item
perhaps our
6,
general manager.
just so that you know, on item 6, there are several speakers.
Speakers on item 6 as well. Okay, so we will hold that as well. But we'll begin with item number 8.
For item number 8, the Department of Animal Services has submitted a report, and this has to do with banning the use of bull hooks and other implements in the handling of elephants for circuses or exhibitions held in the city of Los Angeles.
Ms. Barnett, if you'd like to give us a little overview.
Yes, we have done that. We presented this report. It went to the Animal Welfare Commission, and it was unanimously passed, and we move it forward for your consideration.
And since we did this item, I've had a number of people that have also expressed further concern with elephants, that there are other cruel practices associated with circuses other than those specifically related to bull hooks, and that also there is some concern that the practices themselves might continue, but an item that substitutes for bull hooks might be found. So I'm at least considering the possibility of sending this back to the department and asking them to do analysis on that further step of eliminating all elephants in the circus, and that we ask that the department take it to commission for their advice. I'd like to have members of the public have their opportunity to speak, however. I'll give you 2 minutes apiece, but I'll ask that you be as brief as possible. If you could make it shorter, please do so. And we'll begin with Catherine Doyle, to be followed by Jan Creamer.
Good afternoon. Ready? My name is Catherine Doyle, and I'm a Los Angeles resident, and I'm the Elephant Campaign Director for In Defense of Animals, an international animal protection organization. I have 10 years professional experience in researching the health, welfare, and management of elephants in captivity and advocating for them using science and fact. So I'm very pleased to hear that you're considering actually, obviously we support a ban on bull hooks, the use of bull hooks on elephants in Los Angeles. And also, we would be in full support of also prohibiting the use of elephants in traveling shows that come to Los Angeles. I can tell you in the last 10 years, I've heard every argument in the book for using bull hooks on elephants and for continuing to use them in traveling shows. And actually, for the sake of saving a little bit of time here, I'll go through just some of the things that you're probably going to be hearing and some of the realities behind those statements. Of course, you're going to hear that the animals are the biggest stars of the show, of the circus, but what you're not going to hear is that elephants, in fact, make up a very small part of that show, well under 10 minutes. You're also going to be hearing from different groups about this. You're going to be hearing from organized labor, the members of which I consider to be my brothers and sisters, having grown up in a law enforcement family and being married to a lifetime member of the Musicians Union. So their complaint should not be with the bull hook or non-use of elephants in Los Angeles, but with the circuses that threaten not to come here because we merely want to be a humane city. Bullhicks are just one source of misery, as we know, for elephants in traveling shows. Elephants in circuses can travel for 50 weeks a year, crammed into train cars and trucks for days, standing in their feces and urine. They spend most of their lives in chains, so they naturally would walk tens of miles a day. Many are arthritic and crippled. The impoverishment of circus life is exhibited in elephants' neurotic rocking and swaying, a behavior unseen in the wild. There's absolutely no evidence to suggest that the natural needs of elephants can be met through the living conditions and husbandry offered by circuses. Circuses are going to claim to care for elephants and that anyone can see them. Oh, okay, I'll close. So I urge you to move forward with a ban on bullhooks in Los Angeles and to further protect elephants by prohibiting their use in traveling shows that come to LA. It's a city that I'm very proud to call my home for many reasons, but including its progressive, humane ethic. Thank you.
Thank you. Jan Kramer, followed by Tim Phillips.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'd like to thank you first of all for giving us the opportunity to speak on this issue today. There are just over 300 animals in travelling circuses in the United States, and this has been a hidden animal welfare crisis which only is really now being addressed in the last few years. Repeated studies by my organisation and other organisations have produced extensive evidence that due to the very nature of the constantly travelling circus, deficits in welfare are almost inevitable. The need for facilities to be small, lightweight and mobile means that animals suffer long and arduous journeys and extended periods inside vehicles, and all of this contributes to the welfare problems. The chronic stress that this causes in the animals can be observed in the abnormal behaviours that you see in all species of animals in travelling circuses. And certainly for the wild animals, the exotics, these abnormal behaviours are quite exaggerated. In the travelling circuses, large cats spend 75 to 99% of their time shut in small cages, barren cages on the backs of trucks and trailers. There's nothing to interest the animals, and one of the things that I would like to put into evidence today for this committee are some pictures of tigers in a modern Ringling's cage. And if you look at these pictures, you'll see that it's something like living in a microwave. That's a modern cage in a travelling circus in the United States. That's the space that these animals have. Elephants similarly spend 58 to 99% of their time chained by at least one leg, more commonly often two legs. Our point in the studies that we have provided on this issue.
I'll ask you to finish up your thought.
Thank you. On this issue is that it's simply not possible for a travelling circus to provide these animals with the kind of facilities that they need to keep them healthy and happy. We have submitted evidence to the committee, and I would like to put that in, and we have gathered approaching 3,000 signatures of Los Angeles residents who are calling for a ban on the use of wild animals in travelling circuses in this city. Thank you.
Thank you. Tim Phillips, followed by Marion Bradshaw.
Well, first I'd like to thank you for this opportunity of addressing the Council and for proposing this measure to protect animals. And we do applaud the fact that there's consideration of moving this to a species ban, which we think is much more enforceable and will fulfill the aims of the Council. I would like to speak very briefly to the economic and legal precedents for imposing such a restriction. Last night, Drogheda Council in Ireland and in Australia, Hobson's Bay Council both banned the use of wild animals in circuses. This is a global movement to end the use of wild animals in circuses. There's over 20 national bans now in Austria, Greece, Portugal, Peru, Paraguay, and other countries. These represent the whole spectrum of social and economic spectrum, from agrarian societies to industrialized to Western European through to South American states and even some Asian countries. These measures have been tested at a legal level, the welfare has been examined, and these countries have acted. Circuses can survive without animals. In fact, that is the growth area of the industry. In the UK, between 1998 and 2000, when half the animal circuses closed, all of them were replaced with animal-free circuses. This is a reform of the industry. It's not a prohibition of the industry. Wild animals, not just elephants, but all wild animals, represented just 13 minutes of the 2-hour Ringling show when it came to Staples earlier this year. In terms of labour impacts, which we're all acutely aware of, we have approached the Teamsters Union, which we know have concerns about this, and we hope to discuss whether their concerns are real or realised. We have met with the unions which represent workers here in Los Angeles, Unite Here and IATSE, both of whom take a neutral position on this issue. If I could just finish the point on the...
Yeah, so you just
LA
wrap up your
union.
point.
IATSE workers are employed for the unloading, loading and so forth. So when a small circus with elephants or other animals comes to town like Gatti, that's probably 6 people. With a show like Ringlings, the team from IATSE that we met said that would be 20 to 22, maybe as many as 30. Their only real concern is these venues having enough time to replace these acts, should the circus choose, and it would be the circus choice, to just not come here if they cannot have these animals. In many respects, any other act would probably employ more Los Angeles citizens. Thank you.
Thank you. Shari Shankar, followed by Thomas Albert. And to speed things up, you could come in groups of 2 since we have 2 chairs here.
Thank you for considering this issue today. Humane treatment of animals and wildlife is a value that Californians hold dear, and in Los Angeles we've demonstrated over and over again that we are willing to step up and protect animals from cruelty, exploitation, neglect, and abuse. Ringling and other circuses that use wild animals claim that they treat their elephants well. Keeping them chained and confined for most of their lives is not treating elephants well. Using bull hooks to inflict pain is not treating them well. Subjecting them to over 50 weeks of travel a year in train cars and trucks is not treating them well. Forcing them to do unnatural and silly tricks is not treating them well. 150 years ago, when circuses began using wild animals in their shows, we did not know much about the emotional and behavioral needs of these majestic animals. Today, most animal behavioralists who do not make a living exploiting elephants would agree that circus life is no life for such an intelligent and sensitive creature. Thank you.
Thank you. Thomas Albert and Danielle Graham.
My name is Marion Bradshaw, and I didn't know I needed to come in and be up here. I didn't hear it. I was in the other room.
Okay.
So-
Have you...
I
But
filled it out.
I don't think I've called your name yet.
I
Did
thought I heard my name.
Let me see if I have. Yes, and we can
Where's
see
the
it.
other,
That's
where's
right.
the other room? Ma'am, where were you?
There's an overflow room. So
Where?
She was in the overflow.
I was in the other room.
The overflow?
I-
The overflow room.
Yes, I was in the overflow room. It's much cooler in there, by the way.
Okay. Well, maybe I should go there. All right.
I live in Los Angeles County, and I'm here to not support the ban, to do away with ban. True animal experts know that a safe and secure environment is the only acceptable and successful method of training any animal, including elephants. This proposed ordinance is only directed at circuses because its supporters want to ban the circus, not protect animals. The elephant guide, sometimes called the bull hook or the ankus, has been used by elephant handlers for thousands of years. Elephant handlers in zoos, nature's preserves, circuses throughout the world use the guide as an extension of the trainer's arm along with a voice command. Further, the guide is proven and is a humane tool accepted by the USDA, which regulates all zoos, circuses, and is approved by International Elephant Foundation, the Association of Zoos and Aquariums, the Elephant Managers Association, and the American Veterinary Medical Association. The care and handling of all animals and circuses is already subject to strict federal, state, local laws, all of them under the animal welfare and cruelty laws. All circuses and traveling exhibitions that perform in California, including Ringling Brothers, are subject to unannounced inspections by the USDA to ensure compliance with the Federal Animal Welfare Act. I think it's incredible that a highly funded, tiny minority, but a very vocal minority, could be the death knell of all the research that Ringling does to protect the Asian animal in particular.
Thank you. Thomas Albert, followed by Danielle Graham.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Tom Albert. I'm the Vice President of Feld Entertainment, which is the owner and producer of Ringling Brothers. A lot has already been said here about Ringling Brothers. I'm sure more will be said, and I certainly would welcome an opportunity in this or another forum to address some of the allegations and claims that you'll hear. We're here today, obviously, in opposition to the Animal Services report, whether it frankly be a bullhook ban or a ban on species, on circus animals. Ringling Brothers properly uses this tool along with verbal cues and reward-based direction in our shows during veterinary care and while we travel with our animals. Let's be clear, there's nothing inherently wrong with properly using this tool to guide and control a 10,000-pound, 12-foot tall elephant or to gain its attention in a difficult circumstance. Misusing any training tool or husbandry tool is wrong, but the potential for misuse does not make the tool wrong. Moreover, banning this tool would be in conflict with existing federal law and regulations and would in fact create a serious public safety risk if you were forcing circuses to present elephants without having this tool available. The report, I'm glad to hear the chairman's thinking about sending this report back, obviously not for the reasons that the chairman has mentioned, because we think that the report is seriously flawed. It contains significant inaccuracies and omissions. Most noticeably, the report misrepresents the policy of the American Veterinary Medical Association, which recognizes this tool as appropriate and humane for the management of elephants. It also ignores or misrepresents a large amount of information and professional standards that are available and relevant to elephants from organizations including the AVMA. The report was prepared with little or no input or effort to objectively gather information. It also did not address the many studies that are available regarding animals in circuses, traveling animals, to address some of the claims and allegations that you're being made here today. So we certainly are opposed to a bullhook ban and would support the idea of sending the report back to Animal Services for further work. Thank you.
Thank you. Danielle Graham, to be followed by Harry Peachy, if I have that right.
Hello, my name is Dr. Danielle Graham. I'm the Director of Veterinary Services for Ringling Brothers Circus and our Center for Elephant Conservation. And it's my opinion that this proposed ordinance would hinder my ability to provide the type of high-quality medical care to the elephants that I'm responsible for. A letter has been submitted from the American Veterinary Medical Association in response to Animal Services' submitted report, and in the letter, the AVMA objects to the mischaracterization of the AVMA elephant care policy and supports using the guide as a management tool, and it is a management tool. It would be foolish and, in my opinion, dangerous to only restrain an elephant when it's necessary to perform a medical procedure. Any animal needs to be accustomed to whatever type of restraint is needed before a veterinarian can begin working with that animal, and the handlers that use guides are experienced and know how to use them properly. As to the care of the animals, there are currently 3 full-time and 3 consulting veterinarians on the Ringling Brothers veterinary staff. 4 of our veterinarians are board certified in various disciplines, and together we have over 40 years of elephant medicine experience. I can personally attest that these elephants do receive the best care. Almost every day I see these animals interacting with their handlers and each other. They're playing, they're eating, they're doing normal elephant activities, and this is what I look for as a veterinarian when I'm looking for healthy animals. I've been a veterinarian with Ringling Brothers for over 5.5 years now, and whenever I'm around these animals and their handlers, I see nothing but mutual respect between the two. The handlers are with the elephants 24/7, and there's always someone tending to whatever they need. These animals are comfortable with their handlers using guides, and I feel I can do my work around them safely because of it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I got a question. Do you travel around to the different venues?
I do, yes. I'm based out of Denver, but I travel between our 3 traveling units and our Center for Elephant Conservation.
Do they always have a vet with them as they travel around different?
Yes, so we have veterinary technicians on every unit, and then one of the Ringling vets usually is in a city where they are. If they're not, we have on-call veterinarians in every city that are there for that purpose as well.
Okay, thank you.
Harry Piche, to be followed by Brian French and Darren Baum.
My name is Harry Piche. I'm the elephant manager and curator of mainland Asia at the Columbus Zoo. I have worked with elephants in a zoo environment since 1974. I've worked with both Africans and Asians, males, females, in both protected free contact programs as well as modified free contact. I'm here as a representative of the Elephant Managers Association. I'm also a member of the board of directors of the International Elephant Foundation and the steering committee of the Elephant Taxon Advisory Group of the AZA. I am here primarily to address some of the inaccuracies that are in the report that you are considering today. First of all, the characterization of the guide as a tool that is designed with a primary purpose to inflict pain for training is not only inaccurate, it's inappropriate. The characterization of the AZA policy is also not accurate. It does not mandate protected contact. In fact, it does not address protected contact. It lists elephant management strategies that are referred to as restricted space management, non-restricted space management, both of which allow for the use of a guide, because the policy recognizes that the guide is an effective and humane tool to be used in elephant management. It enhances the handler's care to properly care for the elephant. I think one of the reasons that you see so many inaccuracies in this report is because they failed to address the proper people, the people that have professional backgrounds and experience in elephant management. They did not contact members of the Elephant Managers Association. They did not contact the International Elephant Foundation. They did not contact members of the Taxon Advisory Group. Perhaps the most egregious omission was that they did not use this resource, which is the Elephant Husbandry Resource Guide. It is the most comprehensive manual of its sort. It was compiled with contributions from 49 individuals who all have extensive backgrounds in elephant management. It is not cited. An incredible oversight. If you have any questions.
I'd like to see that if I could, please.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So you're finished with your presentation, correct? Okay. Brian French, followed
Yes.
by Darren Baum.
Hello, my name is Brian French. I'm an elephant trainer and manager with Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey. I've accumulated over the years over 30 years of experience working with both Asian and African elephants in circuses and zoo environments. I started out with Ringling Brothers as a teamster, and over the years worked my way up into my current position, which is manager taking care of elephants on one of Ringling Brothers' traveling units. I also supervise 13 men and women who are also teamsters, many of whom graduated from one of the Ringling Brothers training programs. Over the years, I've had the privilege of working with over 70 elephants, including helping to raise and train young elephants. And with each and every one of those elephants, I used a guide in my interactions with them, with direct contact interactions. Ringling Brothers, just like all circuses and many zoos in the U.S., use free contact management with our elephants, and that means that we are in direct contact with the elephants without the use of a barrier or tethers while we're working with them. Working with trained elephants is done through voice command. The guide is not used to make the elephants do behaviors. It's rather used as an extension of our arms and used in daily care, daily maintenance, helping to cue the elephants to show them what we're asking them to do. Responsible elephant management involves maintaining proper control and a safe environment for both the elephants, the handlers, and the general public. This is a responsibility that myself and my fellow handlers take very seriously. The tool is not used to inflict pain. It would be an ineffective tool to do that. Ringling Brothers and Barnum & Bailey is a leader in elephant management. We have the largest group of elephants and one of the largest breeding programs outside of Asia. A prohibition of this tool would prevent me and many of my fellow handlers from working with elephants and circuses in the U.S. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Darren Baum, followed by Victor Mineros.
Good afternoon. My name is Darren Baum, and I'm the West Coast Regional Vice President for Feld Entertainment, the world's largest producer of live family entertainment in the world. Our productions include Ringling Brothers and Barnum & Bailey Circus, obviously, Feld Motorsports, Disney on Ice, and Disney Live. What you may not know is that we are a significant part of the Los Angeles business community. Our West Coast regional office, located in Woodland Hills in Councilmember Zine's district. The office employs more than a dozen people who live in the LA area who manage the marketing and promotion of all Feld shows throughout California and the western part of the United States. We also hire local publicists and spend millions of dollars in local advertising each year for our productions. Each year, Ringling Brothers performs at Staples Center, where this year we entertain more than 99,000 people. It's our highest grossing circus to date at Staples Center. In fact, our circus has been so popular that we increased this year the number of days and performances that we play at Staples Center. Collectively, Feld's properties host more than 250,000 people in the Los Angeles area each year, and we are one of the largest tenants of the arena. We recently signed a long-term contract extension with the Staples Center to continue to bring our circus and our elephants. While I do not speak for Staples Center, based on my 14 years of experience in the industry, in this and other markets, I believe it next to impossible that the arena could find alternate events that would fill anywhere near the number of events that our circus provides. It's due to the fact that the industry, the concert industry, especially the summertime, concerts are outside. That's why you don't see many concerts in the summertime, which is when we play at Staples Center. The circus travels approximately 300 people who live and work on the show. While in Los Angeles, they spend money in local businesses. And Ringling Brothers itself also spends a significant amount of monies locally for arena rent, labor, services, and supplies. We estimate this direct economic impact well over $1 million, that the loss of the circus would have a negative impact in the city of nearly $6 million in lost revenue and wages. Our circus pays taxes and business fees and generates tax revenue for the city and state. Our show also supports the employment of hundreds of local citizens who work near the Staples Center.
Thank you.
Thank you for being in the 3rd District.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Victor Mineros. I'm from Teamsters Local 396. I'm also here with some of my other Teamster friends. I'm here today to urge you to reject this motion to ban the usage of bull hooks and other implements of handling elephants at the traveling circus or exhibits held in the city of Los Angeles. Many of these animal activists here today are claiming that there is rampant animal abuse in the circus. I want to let all of you know that the people that spend most of the time with the animal are Teamster members who are the animal caregivers. 200 members of Teamsters Local 688 work with the circus. These members live and work from the train. They perform all types of work in all locations of the circus. They work as part of the ring crew. They take care of the train and handle the logistics of moving the circus from one city to another. They take care of the animals. They feed, groom, and clean, work with the trainers to set up the animal living quarters, and handle the animals' movement from one place to another. There are strict federal, state, county, and city regulations that ensure the safety and wellness of the animals. We have spoken to many of the Teamster members, and we're told that if there was any systematic or rampant abuse, they would be the first to know. You have to understand the dedication that the Teamster members have to the animals. If they did not have this type of love and dedication to these animals, they could not do the work. These members are also protected with the collective bargaining rights, that gives them a voice on the job. If there was any abuse happening, they would be the first to expose it. For many of you to use unfounded allegations of rampant animal abuse at the circuits, you are basically saying that the Teamster members are the cause of this abuse. Frankly, many of us in the Teamster Union find this offensive. Thank you, and please do the right thing in rejecting this motion.
Thank you. Sarah Conley, followed by Winnie McKay.
Hi. Good afternoon. I'm here to speak against the proposed ban on elephant guides, or what they're called here, bull hooks. While I understand the desire to protect and love animals that come into the city, I think it's important to make an informed decision about the difference between caring for animal welfare and being a part of animal rights extremism. Performing animals in Los Angeles and in the state of California are regulated from the federal level all the way down to the local level. And moreover, the report recommending such drastic action is full of inaccuracies and outright falsehoods. One of the most blatant is the characterization of the AVMA's policy with bull hooks as being against the use of the guide. AVMA CEO Dr. DeHaven wrote to this very committee stating that the report, and I quote, quoted selectively from our backgrounder and has provided a description of the use of the guide during free contact management that is inconsistent with our views and documentation. But if you listen to the people who are for bans like this, they are not for animal welfare like the AVMA is. PETA's founder, Ingrid Newkirk, has stated that they want to eradicate all human-animal interaction, right down to stopping this whole crazy notion of pets altogether. That's a direct quote from Ingrid. That is not animal welfare. That is animal rights extremism. When it comes about how to best preserve an endangered species like the Asian elephant, you should listen to the people who are the actual experts who are working for elephants every day. Organizations like Ringling Center for Elephant Conservation and the International Elephant Foundation both actively work to help elephants both in human care and in the wild. And their funds go directly to the elephants, not to political lobbying. The CEC has had 24 Asian elephants born, each one a miracle. The IEF has spearheaded efforts to find a cure for a disease that's killing Asian elephants. The animal rights extremist philosophy...
Please wrap up your thought.
The animal rights extremist philosophy is not what Los Angeles wants to throw in with. Do not make yourselves accomplices to the extinction of an endangered species.
Thank you. Winnie McKay.
Hi, I'm a longtime resident of Los Angeles. I've lived here my whole life, and I've always seen and enjoyed elephants in the city. And I do live in the inner city, and I represent two groups, Circus and Films. And if we eliminate elephants by banning that bull hook, it's crazy. It takes, number one, kids in my inner city will not get to see an elephant, number one. Number two is it takes a huge chunk out of the economy when you take the filming out of Los Angeles, which we've already done enough to damage. I mean, we have to try to build it up and not knock it down again. And, you know, in our kids' workshops, I had the kids go home and do some research. I said, you know, go research this for yourself. And I want you to see what they came up with. This is information on PETA, and this is also 40 signatures of inner city families that are against the ban. So, you know, that's one for each of you, and the guy that's not here. And the other thing is, I think it would be proper to rename this elephant hook or bull hook or elephant guide to a fundraising tool. It's become a fundraising tool. It's the figurehead for fundraising. So, you know, don't get caught up in a highly economical paced machine that's trying to, you know, hoodwink you all. So that's all I have to say. But can we please keep elephants in the inner city so our kids that aren't going to have a chance to go on fine, fancy vacations can see elephants? Okay, bye.
Thank you. Tim Conley, followed by Tom Davis.
Hi, my My name is Tom Conley. A lot of stuff has been addressed. I want to read something from Charlie Summit. He runs an animal sanctuary, and he's the president of the International Animal Welfare Alliance. And he says, this is all quotes, we feel confident we can demonstrate that the guide tool is no different than a training collar on a dog or bit in a horse's mouth. If used correctly and legally, no harm should ever come to the animal. Can it be used incorrectly? Of course it can. Then he says, the use of the tool can and does often save elephant lives. It has on several occasions at our facilities, and we have unfortunately documented proof of elephants dying unnecessarily at similar facilities that oppose the use of the tool. We have also documented caretakers being killed and injured due to facilities' inability to or refusal to use the guide tool. We fully support the prosecution of any individual using the guide tool incorrectly. That's from Charlie Summit, who runs a sanctuary for elephants in this state. And the alternative is the sanctuary is run by the animal rights nuts, like PAWS. Their so-called sanctuary is widely reported to be awash at this moment with tuberculosis. Yet the treatment and the testing for elephant TB has been developed by private elephant owners and their elephants in free contact using the guide. That's the treatment that they're going to have to use at their sanctuary to save the PAWS elephants. It should be noted that these people, these animal extremists, don't really do anything to help animals. PETA has a 95.9% kill ratio for all the adoptable animals that they take into their care, and they kill 84% of them within the first 24 hours. I guess I'm done.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Tom Davis. I am the third vice president of the IATSE, which is the International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees, also a vice president with the Los Angeles County Federation of Labor. You will be receiving a letter from Mary Elena, the executive secretary treasurer of the LA County Federation of Labor, opposing this motion. There was a statement earlier that I feel compelled to correct, and that was that the IATSE is neutral on this. That is not correct. The IATSE, as an official position, opposes this motion, and that should be entered into the record. I'm here to urge you to reject the motion to ban the safe use of bullhooks in the city of Los Angeles. The recession has had a devastating impact on the job opportunities of our members. The proposed ban would further eliminate those job opportunities as they occur with the circus coming into town. The IATSE supports efforts to ensure the safe and humane treatment of all animals. But this motion would prevent the use of a safe and refined tool, which at the same time eliminate the thousands of jobs, tens of thousands of dollars in wages that are paid to our members when the circus comes into Los Angeles. This ban would only lead to the elimination of those jobs, and I should mention as well that these jobs and those wages paid are absolutely crucial to the health funds for these members. If the aim is to eliminate animal cruelty, then the focus should be directed at those who commit such atrocities, not to responsible operators such as Ringling Brothers. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ashley Palmer, followed by Brian Monell. Ashley Palmer in the room. Brian Monell in the room. Well, I'll hold them in case they wind up coming in from the other holding room. Oh, there we go.
Good afternoon, City Council members. My name is Ashley Palmer. On behalf of PETA and its more than 3 million members and supporters, many of whom live here in Los Angeles, I am here to voice support for greater legal protection for exotic animals used in entertainment. There's a reason that Ringling Brothers won't allow anyone, including the U.S. Department of Agriculture inspectors, to observe or document baby elephant training. It's because of the only way to get an elephant to learn ridiculous tricks is by forcibly removing that elephant from her mother while she is still an infant, chaining and isolating her to break her spirit, and beating her with bullhooks in order to get her to perform. Elephants used in the circus do not perform because they want to. They perform because they are afraid of what will happen if they don't. The CEO of Ringling's parent company and his circus handlers have testified under oath in federal court about the ongoing use of bullhooks. And in the words of Ringling's own attorney, there's never been any dispute that the bullhook penetrates the skin. Experts agree that elephants who are routinely beaten with bullhooks are more prone to unpredictable and potentially dangerous behavior, and many elephants used by Ringling are being treated for a form of tuberculosis that is highly transmissible to humans, as documented in a study by the Centers for Disease Control. Existing regulations are inadequate to prevent the abuse that is repeatedly captured on undercover video. Banning bullhooks or the use of exotic animals in traveling acts is the only way to ensure that LA isn't supporting cruelty to animals. It's time for LA to join Santa Ana, Pasadena, and dozens of other communities across the country that have taken affirmative actions to ban circus cruelty. Thank you.
Thank you. Brian Monell? In the room, not in the room? I'll hold that till perhaps he comes from next door. Karen Bonadio? Karen Bonadio in the room? My apologies if I mispronounced your name. To be followed by
Good Italian name.
by Phyllis Dougherty.
You're up.
Are you ready?
Yes, please.
Yes, hi, I'm Karen Bonadio. I'm a California State Licensed Contractor, number 798418. I've been a licensed contractor here in the Los Angeles area, and I actually am going to change what I was going to talk about because of everything that's been said already in here, and somebody said that the circus brings 300 jobs into a major metropolitan city. Only 300 jobs? That, to me, it would have no bearing in whether we should have, elephants being mistreated in a circus. I said, this is just something that is part of the business, but as far as having elephants being mistreated with the bull hooks, the prods, I've seen elephants at Staples Center, myself personally, where they were in a lineup, and one got out of line. One of the handlers took a bull hook off a wooden post, swung around and went over to the elephant, and the elephant was fearful and stepped back. I've seen all this. This is at Staples Center. I can't believe that there isn't one person in this room who has not seen video of the abuse to the elephants as they are trained, whether it's at the conservation center where they pull the baby elephants away from their mothers, to how they're treated here. I know that Ringling Brothers continuously says they don't do it, yet fresh video comes out all the time. I want to invite everyone in this room to go to Circus Paws. I was over there this weekend where it was a troupe of young people who did not have any animals in their circus. It was a hit, everybody loved it, and there were 35 people in that troupe. Can you imagine what Staples could do there? I'm so for that, and I really want to ban the use of elephants in the circus. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'll try Brian Monell again.
Hi, sorry, I was in the other room. I'm sorry. I'm here to speak up on behalf of the bullhook. I've actually trained elephants. I've worked with elephants in the circus. I've had many friends that worked at Ringling. I think this is an absolute joke. When people say that it's a guide, yeah, it's a guide in the way that a hatchet could be used as, a little knife. I mean, I've personally sat there and watched the elephants, be beaten brutally numerous times with the, I think we're all familiar with the anchors to the bull hook. It's got little spikes. I've seen the bull hook jammed in every orifice. So the elephants, we used to beat them upside the head on sides of the ribs. I was told flat out that if you're not willing to beat the hell out, the other words were used, but beat the hell out of the elephants, you don't belong in the department. These elephants, it's a guide. This is just, people make this seem like it's a guide, it's this innocuous little tool. Yeah, theoretically, yeah, if you've got a knife, you can just have it sit on the table and it's not do anything. These elephants behind the scenes are beaten savagely. And anybody that tells you that they're not, or comes off with this garbage about it's just a sweet little guide, they're either not familiar with what actually goes on, or they're flat out lying to you. I've worked in a couple different circuses, I've got friends and colleagues there. It's absolutely, I think anybody that has seen this, it's absolutely wrong. If Ringling is going to sit there, and these other circuses are going to sit there and tell you that it's only used as guide, and they've got no secrets, and let them put lifetime cameras in their barns, lifetime, and let's show the training methods. This isn't a state secret. If they're, I keep hearing this stuff about it's only positive reinforcement. The only thing that's positive about the experience is that these elephants are positively beaten with bull hooks. And like I said, if Ringling's got nothing to hide, let's just open up the public and have the training sessions live. It's a done deal.
Well, you have a different testimony than other folks that are currently doing this. First of all, what circuses did you work for, and how long did you work with them?
For 2 years total, Clyde Beatty Cole and with Carson and Barnes. And I personally worked with Joe Frisco. He's now one of the head elephant trainers at Ringling right now. The unit that was just here in Los Angeles and Orange County. I worked with him for about a year or so at Carson Barnes. I sat there and personally watched him falsify tuberculosis tests, beat the elephants with a baseball bat. I know we're talking about the bull hook here, so I'll keep my testimony confined to the bull hook. I've seen him take a bull hook and embed it in the spine of an elephant because she wasn't giving up her trunk to do. It's because she didn't want to, give up. She didn't want to, do the tuberculosis test. If how you train a baby elephant to sit up. You take the bull hook, you put it on the pads of the feet, and they're not like horses or cattle. The pads of these elephants' feet are extremely soft. So I've sat there and watched the bull hook. They'll take a 5-month-old baby elephant, they take the bull hook, they jam it in her pad, and then they basically lift her up until she sits on the tub. These elephants, you're right, you got an 8,000-pound elephant. These elephants are trained out of fear. That's what I was told, and I've witnessed it many times, and like I said, I'm not going to say that I've worked for Ringling. I've worked with a number of circuses, and I've worked with employees that have worked at Ringling. And I was told, hey, this is how we do it at the Conservation Center down in DeLand, Florida. I've worked with people, I think it's just ludicrous, and it just really ticks me off when people sit here and tell you that it's a gentle guide. Yes, yes, you could theoretically, you could guide it. You can also beat the crap out of these elephants, and that's what happens behind the scenes.
Now, did you have to do that when you were in these positions?
I was told that I got to the point where one day, they were getting really suspicious of me because I wouldn't do it. So the boss came up to me one day and said, we had this beautiful, about 30-year-old elephant named Boo, just the sweetest girl. They chained her up outside, and they said, Brian, we want you to beat the F out of this elephant right now. If you don't beat the F out of this elephant, you're out of here. And so, the boss walks away, and they get another guy, and I went up, and at the last second, I eased up. But this is, it's just mind-boggling that people sit here and tell you that this is an innocuous thing. It's not, and as far as, we knew this, it's mind-boggling.
I get the point of it, and we appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate the time.
Thank you. Phyllis Dougherty? That got mixed in. Robert Smith, Michael Bell, and Matt Roselle are the final 3 speakers on this item.
Was there a lady before me? You were calling?
You can start.
Okay. My name is Robert Smith. I'm with the Painters and Allied Trades. And I'm here to ask you to reject this motion. You know, we're in bad economic times. We've been in bad economic times. There's over 38,000 man-hours a year for my brothers and sisters and the Teamsters into this industry. $700,000 in wages. And that doesn't include the 200 members of the Teamsters who actually work for the circus. And then, you know, Paul, I went through the tour with you, and I thought those animals were, when we were at Staples Center earlier in the year, I thought that they were very well treated. I was actually amazed. I can remember being an 8-9-year-old kid, and first time I ever seen an elephant was Barnum and Bailey Circus. And now it's my turn to be John Walsh, and I won't go with arms crazy, but I will speak crazy. For 10,000 years, a dog, dogs. Man would not have evolved without a dog. We hunted with them, everything, they protected us, and within the last 100, 150 years, we've put collars on them. I've got 4 dogs, 16 cats, 2 pet squirrels, and a parrot. I'm crazy about animals. So another gentleman mentioned earlier about a horse's bit or a dog's collar. The next hearing, let's get rid of the dog collars. Let's let them run wild. That's my John Walsh moment. Thank you.
Thank you. A little more hand action there. Robert? A little more hand action.
Michael Bell.
Yes, good afternoon. Michael Bell. Elephants in Crisis is the organization that I helped found with attorney David Castleman, whose name may be familiar to you because he recently went to trial and won the case against the city of the Los Angeles Zoo for cruelty and neglect of the elephants. And Judge Siegel found at that time, in one of his excoriating of the kennel worker at the elephant compound, as well as the executive director and the staff and the vets at the LA Zoo, he said, Judge Siegel said, no one seriously disputes that the use of bullhooks to train or manage an elephant is abusive and inappropriate discipline under Penal Code 596-5, that's the state penal code. And he used this in his decision against the LA Zoo. All the proof was there. All the proof will be there regarding the bullhook for the circuses as well. He banned the use of the bullhook on the elephants at the LA Zoo. That comes under the heading of exhibits. So these are exhibits, they are exhibits. This is an ongoing use of the bullhook at the LA Zoo. They are no different than Ringling Brothers and other zoos that come into this city that want these big animals to do what they want them to do to perform tricks. This is not an extension of their hand. This is my hand. If it was 20 feet long, it would be an extension of my hand with 5 soft fingers. That is not the ankh. The ankh is sharp. It's curved, and it goes into the anus of the elephant, it goes under the trunk of the elephant, it goes into the corner of the eye of the elephant. We found this to be the fact at the LA Zoo, and trust me, Ringling Brothers is no different. Please ban the hook in the city of Los Angeles. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Matt Russell, to be followed by Patty Shankar, will be our last speaker.
Hi, my name is Matt Roselle. I'm the Campaigns Director for Animal Defenders International. I'm also a Los Angeles resident. And I just want to add that the video evidence surrounding the abuse of animals in circuses is so massive that it is impossible to deny that these animals are suffering. The body of evidence represents a very small number of animals in total, 300 wild animals in circuses. So comparing that to all the wild animals in captivity, it really underlines the fact that this is a very abusive industry. In fact, Ringling Brothers was fined $270,000 based on more than 4 years of evidence from USDA investigations, including forcing a sick elephant to perform. This is the largest fine ever doled out in the history of the Animal Welfare Act. The evidence is so clear that hundreds of Angelinos come out when Ringling arrives in town. It is not a minority position, as has been said by some. In fact, 15 California Humane Societies called for a boycott of Ringling Brothers this year, citing the routine abuse, including the SPCA-LA. In the U.S., there are 38 full or partial bans in 18 states. Among these 25, they represent 25 wild and exotic bans, 1 specific to elephants, and 8 bans on painful devices. And referring back to the comments that my colleague made about the IATSE union, we did speak to leaders at the Local 33, and they did not seem to be aware of any overarching policy. So we would love and welcome a bigger conversation with IATSE. We would love to hear their concerns. The leaders we talked to really wanted to protect animals and were concerned about this issue. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Patty Shanker. The abuse and suffering of elephants in circuses needs to be addressed so we can care about this issue. I commend you for not only acknowledging the suffering caused by bull hooks, but for doing something about it. The truth is most people cannot stand animal cruelty, and there are many of us in LA who support this ban, as well as many others who, if they knew what happened, would support it. Joyce Poole, an elephant expert who has studied wild elephants for over 40 years and has spoken around the world and in these chambers about the plight of elephants, captive elephants, says this about the bull hook, quote, "The bull hook is a steel-tipped device similar to a fireplace poker that is used to prod, hook, jab, and strike elephants. Even when not in use, this weapon is a constant reminder of the pain and punishment that can be meted out at any time for any reason. So powerful is the negative association that an elephant who has not even seen the device in years will respond immediately to it. It's mere presence." During the trial against the elephant exhibit this past summer, David Castleman asked one of the veterinarians from San Diego Wildlife Park if he was aware of the severe beating of one of their elephants with a bull hook. The vet was aware of it. Mr. Castleman then asked him if he supported this beating, to which he replied, "I support the discipline." So for the industry, bull hooks are guides and beatings are discipline, but not to the rest of us, or to the judge in this case who ordered that there be no more use of bull hooks at the LA Zoo. Our city should do the same. Because I care about all animals, I have to ask you to consider the others as well. They suffer. The big cats, the primates, and the zebras, who are also beaten, caged, and denied any kind of natural life, should be considered. Circuses should be about human talent, not animal cruelty. I thank you for identifying this suffering and for doing something about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Zion, any further questions or comments?
Well, I have a number of questions. Maybe we can have our Animal Services General Manager come forward. And also somebody who can give information regarding the circuses. Maybe the union folks will have that. Okay, what other cities have implemented this type of proposed ban? Ms. Burnett, do you have other cities that have banned this particular device?
I don't off the top of my head, but that we did mention some of the neighboring cities. I believe Pasadena doesn't have elephants anymore.
I don't think they have circuses either.
Right.
So a city that bans something where they don't have a circus, you can ban cars if you don't have any roads. The fact is, cities that have circuses, I know Inglewood used to have it at the Forum, and the question is, if we ban it here, do they then move to Inglewood, or move to Glendale, or move to Burbank, or move to an adjacent jurisdiction? Is there any state legislation being proposed on this particular subject, to your knowledge?
I think we have some experts in the audience who could answer this. There are 38 partial or full bans on circus animals in municipalities in the U.S. and 18 states.
Okay, 38 bans, 18 states. And I understand this started with I was able to look, I didn't know exactly what the device was, and one of the gentlemen showed me what the device was. It's coming from law enforcement, we use what's called a PR-24, which is a baton with a handle. It's a smaller version of that with a hook on the end. So knowing what it is, I thought it might have been electrified or something to that effect, but it's a device with a hook and I didn't know how that hook could be influential on a large animal, but I guess somehow it has that impact. The financial impact, some of the folks spoke from the trade. We have one circus a year, or do we have more than that in the city of Los Angeles?
Well, we have one large circus, it's Ringling Brothers, and I think we did have some financial data in our report on that.
I think there's Vargas, and
Yeah,
there
that's
may
a
be some
smaller
other
one.
small ones.
Right.
But those don't use animals.
They don't use animal, well, I went to a Vargas circus and they had horses.
They don't use wild animals.
Okay.
They use domesticated animals.
Okay. And then the question is, have you discussed anything with other jurisdictions, surrounding jurisdictions on this in our immediate county of Los Angeles?
I have not. We have been working on the financial impact, and that report will be forthcoming.
Okay. Any state or federal regulations that you're aware of in the report, state or federal, regarding this?
I just heard someone say that there's a federal bill being considered now.
Being considered, but not law at this time?
Correct.
Okay.
And I believe that one is a complete ban on all wild animals and traveling circuses.
We used bullhooks, or there were bullhooks used at the zoo?
We no longer use bullhooks at the zoo.
But they were used at the zoo, and I would state for the record that I voted against the $42 million expenditure for the elephant enhancement at the zoo, which I thought was an inappropriate expenditure. I've had the opportunity to go to South Africa and see elephants in the wild, and I was actually in a Jeep where the elephant was charging us, and thank goodness the Jeep had a good reverse, because the elephant didn't like us for whatever reason. And when those ears come out and that loud sound and those ears start, it's time to get out of town. So I've seen them in the wild. You don't want to mess with them. The lifespan of an elephant in the circus, do we know what that is?
I believe it's much less than those in the wild.
Wait. This is not audience participation time. That comes on the Jerry Springer Show, and this is not the Jerry Springer Show. So what we want to do is get the answers that we can get. Then it started with the bullhook. Now I'm hearing cats and tigers and zebras and live animals. If the issue is to address the bullhook, but it seems our broader focus is to eliminate all wild animals or all animals from a circus.
Well, the department worked on this bullhook report, and that was the first thing that we did. It appears that we may be asked to consider a further study on elephants. I have not been asked to work on anything beyond elephants at this point.
Well, it seems from the testimony of some of the individuals here is when I heard zebras, tigers, cats, banning wild animals in circuses, 20 national bans. I mean, if we're going to go after the industry to do something, it seems like you're taking a little bit with the bullhook. But if there's the movement, which I wasn't aware of because I heard it with the bullhook, if it's a broader focus, we need to look into that and see if there's merit to that particular situation. I'm supportive of banning the elephant at the zoo and giving that 42 acres to something more productive than what I look at as Jurassic Park, because if you ever go there, it looks like Jurassic Park. And how do they train the elephant trainers? Are you aware of that? Because, I mean, you're dealing with domestic issues here in the city of Los Angeles. You know, we may have a bear that comes out of the mountains or a coyote or something, but you're not dealing with wild animals for the most part.
Correct.
So do you have experts that the city of Los Angeles deals with in that particular arena? If it comes in, I think we need to get a report on this situation regarding this full ban of animals that would basically put the circus out of business here in the city of Los Angeles. Are you looking into that?
I'm not sure what the question is.
Well, the question is, what some of the proponents are saying is they want to ban all live animals from the circus. In other words, the circus takes late. They have it at Hollywood Island. You know, it's a circus with music and entertainment, but no live animals. Have you looked into that at all, or is this all new approach to knowledge?
No, we're responding to the request to study the bullhooks and now to probably expand that. If you're asking us to expand that beyond, I'm happy to do so.
Yeah, I don't know if we have the expertise within the city, because that's something that we really haven't gotten involved in. And I look at, if you look at law enforcement, where I come from, some people want to ban the gun, ban the shotgun, ban the handcuffs, ban everything. I mean, there comes a point when you say, some gentleman, I think it was Robert, mentioned about a dog leash. If you look at some of those leashes that have the collar that with the spikes go into the dog, I don't know what that's called, but there's a collar that they have that it strangles the dog. To me, that's inhumane. Yet,
I agree.
we haven't banned that. Maybe we need to review all of this and say, what is humane for an animal? And when you train a puppy, you train it either with abuse or with love. Now, I support the love and giving them rewards, but it looks to me that this started as bullhook, and now it's expanded to a huge degree. And I think our chair wants to get a report back and explore what is being proposed. And if we're going to do something, we need to make sure that what we're going to do is the proper approach and not something, a shotgun approach with one particular issue. And I'm concerned that it's expanding. I was unaware it was expanding, but now I'm hearing that it's becoming a wider horizon than what we're accustomed to in the City of the Angels.
Yeah, I think that's very true. I think the elephant is such a large animal and has such a different exercise need than some animals. It may be wise to study one at a time, but I certainly will follow your instructions and come back with whatever kind of report you'd like to have.
Because I don't know if it's appropriate for us to say ban this and ban that. If we want to put the circus out of business in the City of Los Angeles, and you're going to say ban the elephant, ban the lions, ban the tigers, ban them all, it looks like we're doing this eradication process. And I'm not saying I'm banning the circus. I'm not saying what we should do, but we shouldn't do anything before we find out the economic impact, the impact on the animals, and if Ringling Brothers Bar and Bailey is treating these animals in a proper fashion, or if they're not. You've got obviously two sides of the fence. The folks come in and say we're doing it right. You got the veterinarian here, the doctor of veterinary medicine, who's saying yes. You got other folks saying no. So I'm as loving and sympathetic to animals as the next person, but I think we don't want to go off without the full scope and review, and I don't know if we really have that at this particular junction, based upon what report we have, based upon the conflictions that have been stated, and based upon the fact that some people want to go on a broader scale than the bullhook. And so I would say we need more information before we make an approach and an answer, instead of coming back on nickel and dime in this situation. That's what I would suggest. So.
Well, and I think I tend to agree with you. My thought was to go back and put before the commission and with additional research the possibility of banning elephants and traveling circuses, period, in the City of Los Angeles. I think there are also arguments for going further and banning all other wild animals in the circus, but I'm not sure whether it's as easy to document some of the activities dealing with the other animals. So I would ask that the department research both the practices with elephants and more broadly practices with all wild animal species in traveling circuses, and come back with recommendations on both whether to ban elephants alone or the entirety of wild animal species in circuses. I suspect either way that would mean that traveling circuses that use wild animals would either stop coming to Los Angeles, or we hope in the more positive vein that they might go in the same direction that Circus Vargas and some others have gone, and take out the few minutes of wild animal acts and change their model to focus on the rest of that. There's certainly, we've heard testimony, and I've heard it in the past in both directions, that elephants are trained humanely and that they're trained basically by incredible amounts of torture, and that the effectiveness of the bullhook is not simply because it's sharp and you can poke them and bloody them and torture them with it, which I certainly didn't see any evidence of when I walked with the elephants this time as they came to Staples Center. But it's also the memory of the torture that they endure when they're trained. So when they see a bullhook, it's almost more symbolic as a reminder. So my concern about going the direction of just banning the bullhook is we might be able to find something that looks similar and replace it and still have all the same problems of cruelty, particularly in training, and the cruelty of being on a train car so much of their lives. I mean, there's so many elements to this, but rather than fully discuss those now, I'd rather have a more robust discussion when this comes back from commission.
It's like in San Diego at SeaWorld, how do they train the whales? Do they use devices to torture them? You know, when you look at the animal world, which we look at for entertainment when you go to the zoo or go to SeaWorld or go to some other location. I mean, I had the opportunity to go to Kruger National Park and see elephants and animals in the wild. I mean, it's beautiful to see them in nature at its finest. But then you go to some parts of the world where they kill those animals and they sell parts of the animal, which is obviously great abuse of the animal. I think we really need to explore this to a greater degree. It started with this, but I think there's a potential for so much more. We need to do a deeper exploration. I'm not ready to support, say, ban the hook and that's it, because I don't think that is really what some of the groups say. We want to be humane to the animals. You know, if we look at the animals that you have to deal with on a regular basis, the cats and the dogs and the rabbits and the chickens and all those, I mean, that's a challenging task just to deal with that. And if we take the circus, which comes around, I think, once a year in the city of Los Angeles and Long Beach, Orange County, whatever, I think they're going to find jurisdictions that will have them. But if you look at Los Angeles as a region for this activity, whatever standard we set, you think other cities would accept it. But I don't think Glendale or Burbank or Pasadena have a venue such as Staples. Inglewood has the Forum, and I remember the Forum used to have the Circus. So I think it's a broader focus than what we're looking at with just this. But listening to the folks that have spoken, to me it looks like any live animal, wild animal we should say, I don't know how they train lions and tigers, but I'm sure if you looked at that, there might be some issues dealing with those. We don't have those at the zoo, do we? Lions and tigers?
I think we probably do.
Our zoo, we do? I haven't been in the zoo since I was a little kid. I got stung by a bee, so I don't like to go back there. That's it for me.
Well, so Mr. Zine, I'm going to propose that we continue this item, that we send it back to continue it in this committee, but we send it back first to our commission for review and further research on both the prospect of completely banning elephants and traveling circuses that stop in the city of Los Angeles, and the possibility of completely banning all wild animals that visit the city of Los Angeles. So without objection, and with a second, that'll be the order. And I thank you all for your participation in this item.
Next item. So you want to go to number 3? That was the general manager.
Let's see, I think since we have one other animal-related item.
Which one is that?
Item number 6, although
Did that consent?
this one would otherwise be on consent, so I do have 3 cards if you still want to be heard, but otherwise this item will just go on consent. People that are on the list to speak: Phyllis Dougherty, Jim Bickhart, and Amy Gilbreth.
Number 6, right?
Yes.
Okay, Phyllis Dougherty with Animal Issues Movement. I don't know what the revisions are to this that you're considering. However, there's one thing I want to point, and I've already voiced the opinion that all we're really doing is abdicating the responsibility to go in and enforce the laws that we have and maintain control over pets that are sold in the city. So we're losing one more opportunity to do that. However, there's something that nobody's ever brought up to you at all, which is that rabbits in the city of Los Angeles are not pets under our laws. They are barnyard animals. We wrote the ordinance. We've researched it federally and statewide. As a property owner, if I have someone come in and has a dog or cat on my property, they may be allowed to have it. If they bring a rabbit, I can refuse them immediately because it is a barnyard animal. There's no reason not to classify this as a pet in the city so that it can be regulated for care and also for numbers, because there are no zoonotic diseases that impede that as there are with chickens and poultry. So you need to be aware, no one has mentioned that to you, that they are not classified as a pet, yet we sell them as such.
Yeah, Jim Bickart from the Mayor's Office. I'm here generally in support of the proposed ordinance language that the city attorney has brought you relative to creating a new model for pet shops. But I'd like to encourage the committee to use this opportunity to request that the city attorney add language to the ordinance draft to resolve a problem that has very recently arisen relative to the siting of pet shops that would be operating on the model that your ordinance creates. It's a problem that could cripple this earnest and well-intentioned effort because the permitting difficulties currently associated with obtaining kennel permits in commercial zones. I'd suggest that the simplest way to fix this is by altering the definition of kennel at the beginning of Section 53 of the Municipal Code so that its description of the uses of a kennel are compatible and comparable to those contained in Section 12.17.5.B4O of the Municipal Code, where the need for a conditional use permit for kennels outside of industrial zones is spelled out. By doing this, you can make more readily feasible the new business model for pet shops that calls for them to get their animals, including adult dogs, from shelters and rescues. At the same time, you will not make it any easier for boarding kennels to locate outside of industrial areas. Without such a change, the Department of Building and Safety is likely to continue requiring pet shops to also obtain kennel permits, which will force most of those pet shops out of retail districts where they would have the most chance of being successful, or it might disincentivize them from even trying to open altogether. Thank you.
Thank you. So if we were to pass this to the council, would ask that correction be made by the city attorney before it gets there. I think that would be the appropriate way.
That would be an appropriate thing, and I stand available to work with the city attorney to make that happen. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Amy Galbraith?
Thank you, Councilmember Kretz. I am Amy Gilbreth. I'm the Executive Director of the Found Animals Foundation. I am before you as the real-life practical case in point that Jim mentioned. We currently operate a retail adoption center in Lakewood, California. It sources animals from the Southeast Area Animal Control Authority. I think we are very much the model that you want to encourage in Los Angeles. We've adopted about 1,200 pets out of that store in 17 months. We have applied for permits for a location in Brentwood. Building and Safety has told us that we may not be, even though a pet shop by the code can be in a commercial district, because we will be featuring adult animals, as those are the ones most likely to die at the shelter. They have told us we also need a kennel permit. You cannot get a kennel permit in commercial space without a conditional use permitting process. Functionally, that means I would have to sign the lease on my property and then embark upon the uncertain CUP process. And as a nonprofit, I hope you understand how that financial and operational risk is quite unattractive. So unfortunately, under the current codes, if you want to be a retail adoption center, you have a barrier to entry much higher than what a commercially puppy mill sourced pet store would have. And I'm not sure that that's the intention going forward. So I just wanted to bring that up, that our organization is now having to seriously reconsider whether we can possibly place a retail adoption center in the city of Los Angeles.
Thank you. So I will suggest, if Mr. Zine, if you don't have any other questions or comments on it, I'll suggest that we move this item forward and that we work with the mayor's office on correcting this one individual item and bringing it to the city council with that addition. So without objection, that will be what passes. Now we'll move from animal issues to personnel issues and begin with item number 1. Oh, I'm sorry.
What number is that?
4 and 5.
All right, I forgot the less controversial ones. Let's begin with item number 4.
For item 4, the Department of Animal Services has submitted a report. This has to do with using $52,000 from the Animal Welfare Trust Fund to pay for California Environmental Quality Act documentation in support of a proposed CAT program.
Yes. I think I haven't said all day that I'm Brenda Barnett, General Manager, Animal Services. Anyway, I still am. This is not money actually from the Animal Welfare Trust Fund. This is money that has been donated and restricted to be used for the CEQA study that the injunction has requires that we do before we move forward with a CAT program of any kind. So that's really what the $52,000 is. That's restricted donated income. It's not actually allocating anything from the funding in the Animal Welfare Trust Fund.
So the funds were placed in the Animal Welfare Trust Fund specifically for the environmental review?
Yes, we just put them in there as a place to hold the money.
Very good. And let me see if there are any cards from the public on this. Yes, Phyllis Doherty.
Thank you, Phyllis Doherty, the Animal Issues Movement. We are opposed to this money being laundered through the Animal Welfare Trust Fund. The ad on the Animal Welfare, or the LA Animal Services website clearly says the Animal Welfare Trust Fund is a trust account set up to enhance the quality of life for shelter animals, funding animal supplies, medical equipment, and improvements for the animal care centers. The administrative code restricts the use of the Animal Welfare Trust Fund very specifically. I am on the LA County Animal Care Foundation Board, and we do handle a similar trust fund. You have to be very careful not to taint the integrity of this fund by putting private interest money in there where there is no provision in this fund for a separate account to be established for this purpose. The administrative code is very clear. The fund shall be used to augment established programs. The court opined in the Urban Wildlands case that there was no established program for cats. The judge said very clearly that the department lacked such a TNR cat program, and the informal Felix program was merely allowing privileges to cat trappers using city spay-neuter funds for individual projects by those individuals who trapped cats on their own or as part of a group which did not involve city employees. That was the court. I am not opposed to CEQA, I'm not opposed to CNR, or to TNR, but putting money into this fund for this purpose is a violation of the administrative code. It's very clear because it also says that none of this funding can be used for anything that has to do with sterilization, pet sterilization. The purpose of TNR is sterilization. The trapping and the releasing are just ancillary to that. It's a clear violation. There's $1 million in that fund. There's also $1 million in the spay-neuter fund. We want to see this money put for the CEQA put in some other fund and do not violate the promise and the trust of these donated funds.
Thank you. Ms. Barnett, do you know if the city attorney is aware of this issue? And
he is. At the commission meeting, he said he was very glad that I pointed out that they were donated restricted funds that were just being temporarily held. He felt that resolved the question.
Okay, so the city attorney is aware of it and doesn't have concerns?
Absolutely.
Okay. Mr. Zion?
What does our city attorney here think?
I'd have to defer to Dove LaSalle, who's the city attorney assigned to Animal Services, and if Ms. Barnett's representations are that he's reviewed this and doesn't have any issues, then I would have to concur with that.
There's a law the law people, so we have to agree with them. Or we should agree with them, so I'll support that.
Okay, so motion by Mr. Zine, which I will support to move this item forward, and that will be the action.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 5.
The Department of Animal Services has submitted a report which instructed the department to report back on the Reserve Animal Control Officers Program.
Good afternoon, council members. John Chavez with the Department of Animal Services. Back in March of this year, we were directed via a motion to report back on the Reserve Animal Control Officer Program, which we often refer to as RACO. Just to start off, RACOs are volunteers. They support our animal control officers much the same way a reserve police officer would support police officers out in the field. These RACOs have to go through a process, including up to 6 months worth of training before that they can become RACOs. We do have a RACO program now, and we are, in fact, accepting applications. Last year, around summer, we had to suspend the program after consultation with the Personnel Department and the City Attorney. The reasons for this was we needed to ensure that the job duties for the animal care technicians and animal control officers were separate and distinct. That way, animal care technicians could volunteer as RACOs without us incurring overtime. We spent a lot of time with the Personnel Department, with the CAO's office, with the City Attorney, and the City Attorney actually brought in outside counsel to, in fact, determine that those two positions are separate and our animal care technicians can, in fact, serve as RACO volunteers. Our last class for RACOs occurred last year, around April. We had a graduation of 13 people. We currently have 8 RACOs in our system, and the way we've kind of gone about to outreach, we've solicited applications through our electronic bulletin board. We've done an email blast, we've tweeted, we've posted on Facebook, and this also appears on a weekly basis on the Interdepartmental Transfer Opportunities list. So as soon as we get about 15 qualified applicants, we plan on resuming the RACO training program. We hope to get it off the ground as quickly as this fall. So that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions.
Now, are you engaging in a collaborative effort on outreach with volunteers that are trying to help get people on board as well?
Yes, we would.
How are you doing that currently?
We've talked with volunteers at a number of functions. We've also sent emails out to volunteers, making sure that they know that there is a RACO opportunity. And I've talked to some who have said that they're interested. I don't believe they've actually submitted a formal application yet.
Do we think we'll have a fall 2012 class?
Well, we've been, personnel has put it out on their bulletin. They're trying to help publicize it. We will put it out again in one of our email blasts that goes to about 7,000 people in Los Angeles, and we will continue to, which includes our volunteers and our volunteer ambassadors, and we will hope that we have it. We usually also pick up an article in the paper when we put something out like that, so it gets a little bit broader distribution that way as well.
Councilman, we have had 22 inquiries since June. We do have 2 people that qualify. The major stumbling block for us right now is getting people that have the requisite number of volunteer hours, which is 54 hours over a 3-month period. So we do have interest, but it kind of, the people that are qualified, it gets narrowed down to a pretty small number right now.
So they have to volunteer first before they could get into this program?
Or be staff. Staff is not required to do that volunteer time, but we don't have the applicants. Some of the staff that have done this in the past have found that it's really onerous to keep up the volunteer commitment after the class is over.
And have we ever tried working with LAPD, because I know they have a fairly successful reserve program, to see what they do that works and how we could emulate some of their success?
Councilmember Zine, is the LAPD Reserve Officer Program robust?
Very, very robust.
So
I'm part of the robust.
I didn't know if you were the only one.
Well, we have a high percentage on the city council, but I think that would be an unrealistic pattern for the city at large. We'd be crawling with reserve officers if that were
A lot
true.
of guns around, you better watch out.
But, so I'm assuming that's a no in answer to my question.
No, we can certainly talk with the people over at LAPD and see what they're doing that we're not.
Because they've had pretty good success. Of course, the program's been going on very actively for a lot longer, but I think there's probably something to be learned there. Also, I understand that money was raised through some neighborhood councils, and I'm not sure if that money has found its way to the RACO program.
There's earmarked. There's $15,000 earmarked, and some of that came from neighborhood councils, and some of that, I believe, came from a commission allocation from the Animal Welfare Trust Fund.
So has that money been spent on this, or is it going to be spent?
It's held for the next class.
Yes. But it is accessible. We have
Yes,
it.
we have the
When we
funding.
have the class, we'll spend it on.
We definitely have the funding for a class.
Okay. Any other questions, Mr. Zine?
Well,
Take my
the LAPD, they have some paramedics who are reserve LAPD. They have some reserve, or some DOT who are reserve LAPD. So, I mean, there's a mixture when you talk about some of the folks that you have at the department to be a RACO officer. Will they be involved in enforcement duties?
I believe that when we worked with the city attorney and with personnel, we came to the conclusion that a RACO officer will be paired with one of our regular officers, and when they go out, they will work together. So yes, they could be involved in enforcement, and it would certainly be totally appropriate to have someone who is a registered vet tech or had some medical skills as well.
Because I think, bless you, I think when you do that versus just at the shelter, because I've spent some time at the shelters, you know, if they want to get involved in that, and we have within the police reserves different levels. Level 1, you can go out by yourself. You don't have to have a trained officer. Then they've got other levels. They used to have specialists. Now they're called volunteers. I mean, the police department has changed some of the descriptions of classification, so you may want to check because of the state standards that they have. But when they're involved in enforcement and pair up with the animal control officer as a partner, they want to go out there and actually do something rather than stay around the shelter. So I think broaden out that responsibility.
Yeah, maybe I should be a little bit more clear. The volunteer hours at the shelter is just to make sure that they have animal handling skills. Once they're through the training, they do not work as animal care technicians. They are paired with an animal control officer.
And they'll be out in the field. And
Absolutely, that's where we want them.
In fact, we have them complete a supplemental questionnaire, and one of the things that we ask them specifically is to let them know that they understand that they're going to be working outdoors, often in extreme weather conditions. So there's a checklist of about 11 things that clearly lays out what's expected of RACOs. That includes it will include enforcement out in the field.
Okay, good, because I think that's basically what they want to do, is go out there and that gives your folks assistance when they're doing
Absolutely.
Okay, good. All right, good program. Thank you.
Okay, we have several cards from members of the public. Paul Dorigo, be followed by Lydia Grant and Michael Bell.
Good afternoon. My name is Paul Dorigo. The Reserve Animal Control Officer Program RACO is so important to the department and to the city and the citizens of Los Angeles. The benefits of RACO could be so tremendous that to date, 23 neighborhood councils from San Pedro to Silmar, representing hundreds of thousands of people, immediately recognized the value of RACO to their stakeholders and voted to support to help fund the training program. To date, over $25,000 in funds have already been provided to LA Animal Services for training of RACO volunteers. It could be more if the program was active. The city's neighborhood councils not only like the RACO program, they understand it. They recognize the need and the benefit to all the people and the animals. They also are motivated to the success because they have something at stake. They have a direct connection to their areas and the issues that are at hand. Why not use this? Every city department should strive to provide the best services to the citizens of Los Angeles and use every resource possible to further enhance this service. In a city of almost 4 million people, I know we can find 40 to 50 who would volunteer to be a RACO. Imagine 50 more RACOs, each putting in 24 hours a month volunteer time. That's 1,200 hours a month of additional service to the city and the animals of Los Angeles. Do you think LA Animal Services could respond faster? Do you think they could rescue more, be more involved? All that with very little added to the budget. If we say we don't have volunteers, the question is why? Many successful departments, as you've heard, have volunteers. LAPD has over 400 reserve officers, 120 level ones. And they promote through career days, schools, canvassing. They have a dedicated webpage for the reserves. LA Fire Department uses CERTs. Libraries uses volunteers. Neighborhood councils all volunteers. The Mayor's Office Crisis Response Team are volunteers. And the Red Cross functions and survives under volunteers. With a proper campaign targeted to our best resources for good candidates, LA Animal Service could recruit their candidates from vet clinics, schools, colleges, rescue groups. Volunteers is what they need.
I'll have to ask you to wrap up your thought.
Okay. We can do all this. We, LA, can be the best service in the country, a department that provides the best service to its citizens and animal population, incorporating highly trained, effective people that others will look as a reference for success. We found a way to do that. LA Animal Services and the RACO program does that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great motion. Thank you very much.
Lydia Grant?
Yes, I am Sunland Tahunga Neighborhood Council, one of those councils that has donated to the RACO program. We're also the home of the station fire, and I don't know if you're aware, but we had another fire in the canyon night before last. It is imperative to our community that we get help and people on the streets to help with the animal issues. During the station fire, we had a lot of problems, and we need to make sure that the system is in place so that there's more people to help in time of crisis. There's been, delays in the program, and it's really important. The neighborhood councils have band together. We really want this to happen, that we get moving forward on it and get it to happen a little faster. I would also suggest using Empower LA as one of those organizations that the Department of Animal Welfare could go to request volunteers, since basically our community neighborhood councils are made up of volunteers, and we have tons of people in the community who aren't interested in necessarily being on a neighborhood council, but they're interested in volunteering to help improve the community. So I would say that would definitely be a place that I would go look for volunteers to help with the RACO program. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael Bell?
Yes, Councilman Zine, you mentioned the fact that there may be state codes that cover the reserve officer program.
There are.
Okay. The fact that they are able to raise as many volunteers as they have, and the fact that someone who's a reserve officer can go out by himself, unless I misunderstood you.
Different levels, yes.
Different levels, et cetera. Why would that, and I'm curious, and I think this needs to be researched by the department or the city attorney, how different would that be for the RACO officer? Because
when you're doing enforcement, which means that you're arresting people.
Yes, I get that.
And you're issuing citations.
Yes.
There's certain state mandates, and you have
Yes.
to have certain training.
Yes.
Peace officer standard training is the curriculum that they follow.
Right.
Post. So with enforcement of animal services, they probably have to comply with that same issue, where they'd have to qualify with that. The police department has different categories. You could be a level 2, which means you go out, but you have to be with a full-time officer.
Got it.
Or a level 1. So there are different categories. With animal services, there may be some situation where they go out by themselves.
Yes.
They're in uniform, they're in a city vehicle, they've got to go through what the city requires, but then there's state mandates when you're doing enforcement. There's codes that you have to follow and trainings, the minimum number of hours that are required. So that's something that they have to work out through animal services and the state standards, because you are in enforcement.
That's my point, because as our general manager has stated, that once they finish with their program, they can go out in tandem with an officer, et cetera.
And part of that program needs to comply with the state standard, peace officer standard training. They can incorporate that in the program.
See, that's what I wanted to know.
You got 800 hours to be a reserve with LAP. 800 hours is a long time.
Yes.
You got the physical, you've got the shooting, you've got all kinds of different criteria that establishes. I don't know exactly what they establish, but when you're doing enforcement, you have to make sure you're complying with the state standard, or the city is then liable for doing things that aren't proper.
Your time is up. Now, my time.
Your question.
Let me have my question now.
I'll give you a few seconds in addition, but your time is up.
There are different needs for the animal control officer. Obviously, enforcement becomes one of those needs, but there's also a problem with the fact that a lot of the officers, because we have a very skeleton crew at the Department of Animal Services. RACO officers could go out and respond to dogs in the street, which we don't have enough officers apparently to do at this time. I know because of the calls I get at home as Citizens for Humane Los Angeles executive that people say, I can't get the department to go out, I can't get the department to trap these dogs next to Home Depot. If we had the RACO program, unfortunately we lost a year in the process, but if that thing was ongoing with a proper push for it, a real strong push, and a public relations officer, if at all possible, or someone from the private sector, because we have people within the humane community that are PR people that I'm sure would be glad to assist on some level to get those volunteers in, and I know Mr. DeRigo can raise that money through the neighborhood councils. I think we can really galvanize and get moving on this and save those animals and a lot of grief and a lot of emotional grief, as well as economic grief.
Well, then you also have the person who owns that animal who can be cited for some violation. So there's a lot of particulars. Now, I'm just saying that, and I'm the one that did the motion on this to get this thing moving along. I think it's a great program, and the author of the motion, I want to see it happen as quickly as possible, but I want to make sure that we comply with all the standards so we don't do something and then the city gets sued because the officer did something.
Absolutely, you have to protect yourself. I fully understand that, but boy, I certainly think that if somebody has a dog off a leash or somebody has a barking dog, instead of taking it to the courts, why isn't it like a parking ticket? Because that way the money can go to the city. To the department.
They can appeal it. When they get that, then they can go to court.
Then they can go to court. But in the meantime, it should go to the department the way it goes to the Department of Traffic.
But then the RACO officer would have to appear, like as a reserve officer?
I get it. I get that.
have to go when I cite
that would be
someone to go to
understood.
court.
Yes, I get that.
Anyway, we'll work out that.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you. So
get some more money.
So I guess the proper thing right now is to approve the item and receive and file note and file the motion and the report. Although I would ask that the department comes back with a brief report in 90 days to let us know what your progress is on this item.
Good.
Other than that, thank you very much.
You have 1, 2, 3.
Let's do item 1 and 2 together.
Before you go to that, do you want to do item 3?
Yeah, we could do 3.
It might be a quicker item.
Oh, you had just some brief questions. Otherwise, I was ready to do that on consent. So we could briefly do item number 3.
Number 3.
For item 3, the mayor has submitted a report requesting an exemption for one assistant general manager for the Department of Recreation and Parks.
Question, how many do they have now?
We have 3.
And you want 4?
Yes.
Why?
Because we feel that for our department, the way it's organized and the number of employees that we have, for our department, we have full and part-time, we have over 5,000 employees. This assistant general manager position is a new position that would oversee our planning, construction, and maintenance branch. As you know, we also have about $500 million of construction projects that are in progress or are going to be in progress. Along with this assistant general manager will oversee our construction, our facility maintenance, our restroom cleaning, all of the advanced planning efforts that we have in the department as well.
Okay, what's the salary?
The salary is about $186,000.
And where's that money coming from?
It's going to come from our salary that we're going to hold 2 or 3 gardener caretaker positions vacant.
And how short are you on those positions now?
We have many vacancies in those positions.
And this is so important that the others can go without for this particular third, plus you have a general manager, so now you're going to have 4. You have the general manager, and then plus...
And this will be the 4th assistant general manager.
4 assistant. Have they ever had 4 before?
No. And we also, too, when we presented this item to our board back in August, we also showed the ratio of how our department racks up against other departments who have assistant general managers as well. And our ratios are way off from the other departments, which are smaller than ours.
Well, my only concern is we have a huge deficit, $250 million deficit. And my concern is we need fewer general managers and more workers. And the concern is if we approve this and you're saying you have a salary savings from a lower level salary that would make up for this $186,000 plus benefits. To me, we need more worker bees and we need general managers. And that's a concern I have with other departments because we have a $250 million deficit. We've gone without it. All of a sudden, we need it now. I don't know any bond measures other than the ones that have already passed for animal services, recs and parks. Does this go through the EERC?
No.
It didn't go through the ERC. Did it go through the managed hiring? Did this go through managed hiring?
This is, no, it hasn't gone to managed hiring because this is the final step. What it has gone through our board for approval. It has gone to the mayor for approval, and last week it was approved for allocation by the civil service commissioners.
Yeah, the problem I have is the $186,000 salary, and we're cutting more people who are doing the job. That's the concern I have.
Part of the salary for this position will also be covered through the various Quimby funds and also the bonds and so forth, and also the work that we do for the Department of Water and Power to offset the salary from of the general fund sources.
Then how short are you on other personnel with Recs and Parks?
Well, right now, we're trying to get some positions filled through the managed hiring process, but we've also, too, for the past 3 years, we haven't been able to fill positions.
And that's because we have a huge budget gap, and the budget gap's not getting any smaller.
That as well, but also, too, that we realized because of that we didn't even try to go through the process. But we've now come to the point where we are dysfunctional in the sense that we have lost many positions. We've lost hundreds of positions over the last few years through the early retirement and other attrition efforts, and so we're now at a point where we had to reshuffle and reorganize the department, and we felt that this was the time to do this. Also, I wanted to bring to your attention that this position was actually included in the budget in fiscal year 2009-10. It was approved by the mayor and council at that time. We did not move forward with getting it approved, completed, and filled at that time, but we are now trying to do that. So this is not the first time that this position was already approved. And so it was in the budget, fiscal year 2009-10. We did not come back, we did not try to fill at that time because we realized what the city was going through. But also, too, over that time, we've lost some other higher-level positions in our department. We lost a chief management analyst, we've lost a superintendent position, and so forth. And also, too, as our human resources director just informed me that we did have another assistant general manager position in the 90s.
Okay. Well, in all due respect to Mr. Michael, I respect and think he's a great general manager. I cannot support it. I want to vote no.
Okay, well, I think this is a pretty beleaguered department, and if this is what they need to run at the greatest efficiency, I will support it. So I guess we'll reflect this as a 1-to-1 vote, 1 yes, 1 no.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And now items 1 and 2.
Okay.
For item 1, it's a verbal status report from the Personnel Department, and this has to do specifically with Civilian Modified Flexible Benefits Program as it relates to Blue Cross and the status benefits for Cedars and UCLA. For item 2, the department has submitted a written report as well as a corrected report today, and it has to do with the overall program for the year 2013 and contract extensions with the third-party administrative services, Mercer HR Services.
Good afternoon, David Luther from the Personnel Department. And just to rehash very quickly, on September 25th, we were here at this committee with recommendations from the Joint Labor Management Committee, which included a plan to implement a narrow network on the Blue Cross side, both for the HMO and PPO. This committee asked the JLBC to convene a special meeting, and that did occur. We actually had 2 special meetings, one on September 28th and one this morning, October 2nd. As a result of those special meetings, the Joint Labor Management Committee unanimously, first of all, considered the committee's recommendations to restore the Anthem Blue Cross PPO network to its current state, and also an option to add a second HMO plan for the Blue Cross that would allow, essentially create 2 plans, one in the narrow network, one with the full network. And the committee considered both of those recommendations today. Alex will go over the specifics of what was agreed today at JLMBC, and Maria mentioned this is an oral update, but we did provide a written transmittal, and if you want to follow along with what Alex is going to cover, it's this multicolored sheet here, and we'll go ahead and just describe the changes that we're recommending.
I'm not sure if I have a copy of that.
It's like that. It's like-
Yes, we have some additional copies that can be handed out.
So this morning, basically, the JLMBC made a modification to their original recommendation for plan design changes for plan year 2013. Just to review it from this attachment, the first item is from the original report, which includes a transfer from the Employee Benefits Trust Fund in the amount of $5 million. As David indicated, the JLMBC also recommended moving forward with the Anthem Select Narrow Network for the HMO portion of the Flex Plan, which would generate savings of approximately $7.1 million. They also recommended going back to a full PPO network, which would eliminate the potential, the savings that were anticipated, and those savings were projected at $533,000. And they also agreed to accept Anthem's proposal to offset $250,000 of the costs of the lost savings without a...
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure the committee knew. Last time we presented on that specific issue, the Anthem representative had said it was contingent upon a one-year contract extension, and subsequent to the meeting, they withdrew their contingency, so it's just $250,000.
So the other three items on this list, the medical plan provider reduction is what we had on the original report. Through negotiations with the carriers, they agreed to reduce their rates by $800,000. The JLMBC took an action to freeze the disability cap, which we're estimating will generate savings of $90,000. The JLMBC had also approved implementing a flex-dependent audit, which initially will cost approximately $250,000, but we expect that savings will be generated after completion of the audit. As indicated earlier, the JLMBC this morning opted to add another HMO plan that had a full network, and that the additional premium costs for that plan would be borne by employees. Now, that would be subject to a meet and confer process to establish what the subsidy would be for that plan, as the medical subsidy is codified in each of the MOUs. So in order to accomplish this, there would have to be a mid-year open enrollment, because there would need to be time to negotiate this and make the change, and then basically finalize the rates for the second HMO plan. That's not something that's doable within this open enrollment period. So the JLMBC opted to implement this midway year through the plan year.
Just go ahead and give the date. It would be effective July 1st.
So it would be effective July 1st, 2013.
Would the open enrollment be just for this particular issue, or would we have to have a citywide open enrollment at the same time?
Well, we would move forward with this October citywide open enrollment to allow employees to make changes to their benefits. And then what we would do is similar to what we did in 2011 when we had mid-year plan changes. We had another open enrollment, a short 2-week open enrollment period that still was open to all city employees. And last year, well, in 2011, what we did was we had that open enrollment during the month of May.
Okay.
And finally, the JLMBC also recommended that there be a change to the city-sponsored flex dental plan, and that the subsidy would be reduced Currently, the subsidy is 85% of the single-party PPO premium amount, and they recommended to reduce that down to 75%. There would be no changes to the plan itself in terms of copays and deductibles or what the plan coverage. This would just change what the premium subsidy is that the city pays. And preliminarily, we are estimating that what this basically would do is to shift the premium costs from the city to employees in the amount of about $5.44 a month for those employees enrolled in this plan. And that would generate savings, and again, because this was done this morning, we're estimating that the savings will be between $500,000 to $1 million.
I did want to add the intent of doing that, and the intent of the committee was to find another way to provide savings to offset the premium costs of this full HMO plan. The premiums will obviously be higher than the narrow network, so again, the intent was to at least reduce that cost as much as possible by implementing this option.
And I think it's also worth pointing out at this point, because we don't know exactly what the premiums will be for the second HMO, and we don't know what the subsidy will be that's going to be negotiated, it's difficult for us to determine what the cost would be or its savings would be with the second HMO plan. We also don't know to what extent employees will enroll in this plan, so as we get more information, we'll be able to provide better estimates of what we anticipate the cost or the savings to be. And finally, as a result of adopting mid-year plan changes, we'll have to have another open enrollment, which will require additional resources, staffing resources, consulting resources, programming changes, and additional services that we'll have to have our third-party administrator help us basically roll out the second open enrollment in 2013.
Okay, Mr. Zine, I know you're tight on time, so if you have any questions or comments?
I'm glad they worked it out. I think they worked it out. Do you think they worked it out?
I mean, it sounds like a pretty good result.
From our last meeting.
We are tight on time. We do have a number of speakers. I'll ask each speaker to try and limit yourself to 1 minute. You can go over a little if there's detail we're missing. Arturo Martinez, Cheryl Fox, and Adrian Chavez. Arturo Martinez here, not here. Cheryl Fox. Adrian Chavez.
Good afternoon, Councilman. My name is Adrian Chavez, and I want to ensure that I maintain access to doctors affiliated with Cedars with the Anthem Blue Cross plan options. I have a more than 20-year relationship with doctors at Cedars, which began with my prenatal care in 1992. Currently, I am being treated for a chronic health condition and have an awesome team of doctors who are helping me live successfully with this condition. Additionally, my husband, who is covered through my insurance, was diagnosed with prostate cancer a little more than 2 years ago. He is also receiving treatment by a team of doctors only affiliated with Cedars. To force us to find other doctors and begin the treatment process all over again is insensitive and would cause us an additional burden, not to mention additional stress and financial harm. We should at least be afforded the opportunity to continue seeing our current doctors without this financial harm, because we won't have access to doctors affiliated with the Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. Thank you.
Thank you. Jennifer Ramirez, Adina Hopenstand, and Hugo Rossiter.
Council members, my name is Adina Hopenstand, and I wanted to thank you again for considering the concerns that were expressed at the last meeting on this issue, and looking past the numbers and the percentages, that raw data in those reports presented to you, and seeing the real human concerns and human impacts, and then having the committee reconsider and having a result that is before you today, which I do support and really does alleviate my personal concerns and that of many of my coworkers that have been expressed at these various meetings. That said, I just have one comment, not specific to the report, but in general, something that was brought before this committee, which was a concern about the lack of adequate communication and notice about these changes that really affect people on a personal level, their health. And while there had been some discussion that I was present for at the JLMBC meeting, I think to some extent it was misdirected towards the vendor of Anthem of not communicating the final decision. Instead, at least my personal perspective and those that I heard echoed at the last meeting, was that we would like, as employees personally affected by these sorts of dramatic health decisions, to have advance notice, to participate in this process like we've now been able to at these last two JLMBC meetings and at this very personnel committee meeting as well as the previous one. So thank you very much, and I endorse the report and the proposition that is before you now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Hugo Rossiter. A week ago, we were looking at this committee. We thought we were in deep trouble with regard to the Anthem coverage, and due to the efforts of this committee, we think we're a lot further along. And I think that kudos to Maggie Whalen and her staff and the JLMBC for the progress of the report today. It's certainly a significant step forward. We strongly urge that we find a way to keep to keep what is now being called the traditional HMO option to be available January 1st, not July 1st. I understand the logistics of it, but nevertheless, it's just going to be, if we were trying to avoid disruption by people changing once, we now have the possibility of people changing twice within a 6-month period. And it seems like we should be able to find a way out of that. I realize that this is something that has to be negotiated. It has to be done quickly. There were assurances at the JLMBC today that the unions would cooperate in that. I'm sure Anthem can come up with the numbers, if they haven't already, very quickly. So we suggest strongly that perhaps that this committee retain jurisdiction of this report for another week, and let's see what we can be pulled off by the Benefits Department and Anthem in the interim, so that we can try to get this done all at once, partly to avoid spending $500,000 on a second open enrollment period, which is just money for nothing. But certainly, all of the employees concerned, thank you, whether they're engineers, librarians, clerks, analysts, council, mayoral staff, and attorneys. And we greatly appreciate your concern and your actions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Hugo, you don't look any older than last week.
Adina Hopenstand left. Cliff Grow and Sharon Chow.
Sharon Chow, she left. My name is Clive Graw, a kidney transplant patient whose life depends on access to my transplant center and doctors at Cedars-Sinai. I got my transplant 3 years ago. I applaud the JLMB's motion to restore full PPO access to UCLA and Cedars-Sinai doctors and need to make sure that it really happens. Retaining in-network access to UCLA and Cedars doctors for seriously ill patients or those with rare conditions is essential, and here's why. Those with serious conditions require extended hospital stays as well as costly procedures. Out-of-network bills for major surgery may be as much as $50,000, while Anthem might find that $10,000 is reasonable and customary, leaving you with a $43,000 out-of-pocket expense. Can you in good conscience sell us a $43,000 deductible insurance policy? Really? This patient is then left with two choices: go to UCLA or Cedars and risk devastating debt, or go to another hospital and settle for a doctor without the necessary specialization. Your choice may be sell your house or risk your life. After all the emotional testimony by city workers last Friday, begging the city to allow them access to life-saving treatment, and an article in the Times on Saturday, including a mother's heartfelt plea to save her child's life, this committee seemed moved by the testimony, but failed to act until this morning. Even though Mr. Santana admitted while a small percentage of our employees are affected, they are affected 100%. What he failed to explain is that 100% effect on seriously ill patients means more deaths. I hate to be dramatic, but life-saving treatment plus compromised care equals more deaths, no matter how you parse it. I should know, since I had less than a 5% chance of being here today after 4 bouts of septicemia with an immunodepressed body. And it's not luck, but Cedars-Sinai who saved me. Retaining access for city employees to the top doctors in the nation is not only the right thing to do, it is the only thing that can be done to save the lives of those with life-threatening illnesses. Thank you.
Thank you. Clive Grow? Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you had your time, go ahead.
Yeah, want another 2 minutes? That was very compelling testimony. Carmen Hawkins, to be followed by Chrislyn McCarran. Either of those two here? Okay.
Good afternoon, council members, and thank you for this opportunity. I'm yet another city employee who's very dependent on care at UCLA. My husband was diagnosed with renal cell carcinoma 7 months ago. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that particular type of cancer, but it requires very specialized treatment. It does not respond to the traditional cancer therapies, chemotherapy, radiation, and the like. Our care at UCLA has, quite literally, in the medical consensus, is that it saved my husband's life, and he requires continual care there. So I'm very heartened to hear that we may have the option to keep our full HMO, even if it's at an additional expense. It would certainly be appreciated. As I mentioned, with the care that we're receiving at UCLA, we actually have hope. We have hope that he can live several more years. We have hope that someday there'll be a cure. And we need this specialized treatment. So I felt compelled to share my story today, and I appreciate your time, and I appreciate the Personnel Department's work on this issue very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Last speaker is Earl Thomas.
You guys won already. What's Oh, no, I know. I was told you didn't want to speak.
Ready?
Yes.
Thank you so much. My name is Earl Thomas. I know that you're pressed for time. I am a long time. That was quick.
Really
That was fast.
Try again.
All right. I'm a longtime resident of the city of Los Angeles for 50 plus years. I'm also a longtime city employee with the city attorney's office. My current assignment is chief of the criminal division. I'm here on behalf of myself, my sons, and who are on the PPO plan with Cedars, and also many of my colleagues. There's been a real buzz in the office about all of this. I want to thank you, first of all, for the support that you've given so far, also to the Personnel Department, to Maggie Whalen. I think that we are optimistic with the results that occurred this morning, but I just want to make the point that, you know, we need to do everything that we can beyond this point to keep the PPO program. And to keep Cedars and the HMO at UCLA. I've given you, which I want to be entered into the record, just a chart which kind of demonstrates what the out-of-pocket cost would be if we were to go to the proposed plan for 2013. And that is this. Look, I was interested because I wanted to see what it might cost me out of pocket if I had to change. And according to my calculations, I hope I've done the math correctly, for a $1,000 medical bill, which is of course a minor bill, the insurance company would pay, I think, $600 for that, given the percentages. I would pay 30% employee payment. which would come to $180, but then the question would be, who would pay the difference between the $600 and the $1,000 medical coverage? And that would be me, according to the way I understand the plan. So my total share or total cost for a $1,000 medical bill, if I'm correct, would be $580. Now, when you multiply that and extrapolate, which I can do because just recently I underwent knee replacement surgery, and the surgery cost about $100,000. My calculation tells me that I would have to pay out of pocket, when you consider the deductible and you consider the cap, which I think is a $2,000 cap, the difference would be $43,250 that I would have to pay out of pocket. And to tell you the truth, I'd be broke. That would just be impossible. So I really encourage you to do all that you can to keep this program. I know it's a matter of dollars and cents, but it's also a matter of choice. And when it comes to doctors, it's a matter of trust and confidence. And I think feeling confident about your medical care is half of recovering from a serious illness. So I just want to encourage you with your efforts to go forward with that, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Basia Jankowski?
Yes, I wanted to thank the committee for your consideration and the concern you've showed for the employees of the city. I was at for a portion of the meeting this morning, and I guess I learned some things that I didn't know before. So I did want to point out that the figures that had been given to you for the HMO disruption by the CAO were actually higher, almost 50% higher by the Anthem representatives. It looked like the PPO and HMO disruption was almost 4,000 people, so including their families, I'm thinking 10,000 people. So thank you for the consideration for those people. However, the HMO extension for 6 months really doesn't make any sense, because I know the HMO I'm part of is not accepting new patients. So if I have to go to Kaiser for 6 months and then try and go back next July, I may not be able to get back into my medical group. So I don't know if there's a way Anthem can guarantee that, but I would certainly ask that you would include that in whatever negotiations you do. In addition, the HMO full network plan is lower than the subsidy for Kaiser right now. So I'm not sure why there has to be any renegotiations, why they can't just insert the plan back in as we had it, since it's not more expensive than Kaiser, and the Kaiser two-party plan is the amount of subsidy that's earmarked for each employee. Also, I think that the people were talking about this transfer, the Employee Benefits Trust Fund transfer, that this is a surplus from Anthem. So I guess I don't understand why that surplus from Anthem from last year wasn't used to offset costs this year instead of taking more costs out. So again, the 6-month disruption in the HMO would not work for your HMO city employees unless there's some guarantee from Anthem that we could go back into that HMO. Thank you.
Thank you. Wonder if we could have staff come back up and answer a few questions, including a couple that were mentioned in the course of the conversation. Particularly about the 6-month disruption. How difficult will it be to have people go off their plan and then back on their plan? And is there any possible way that we can do this negotiation fast enough that we could catch the tail end of open enrollment and actually implement it without having to wait 6 months?
Well, with respect to the last portion of your question, during open enrollment, we have to communicate to the employees what the premium costs are going to be for all the plans that are available to them. Employees actually go on an online system and make their benefit elections, and they can see what the costs are going to be. That we then send them a confirmation of what their elections are, including the pay period costs that they're going to incur. So all of this is programmed into that system. So basically, inserting an additional plan at the tail end of open enrollment is not something that's feasible, and we don't have the ability to do that within this time frame.
What makes it infeasible? I'm not following that.
Well, we would have to basically have to communicate to employees all the new plan, and then give them the opportunity to make an election or decide whether or not they want this other plan. I think the other key thing is, as I understand it, that this second HMO is also contingent on negotiations. And that, as I understand it, and Marita can speak to maybe what all would involve in terms of negotiating a change to the MOU and the medical subsidy that's codified in the MOUs.
I would just add, council member, as it is today, the changes that we've made don't affect the premium structure itself. That's why we're able to make the change to the PPO and still continue open enrollment. As it is today, we're still going to extend open enrollment an additional 2 weeks just to accommodate some of the confusion that will occur as we issue new communication materials to all employees saying that the PPO is restored. In a best case scenario, that's the best we can do. If we actually change premium structures, it's just not feasible to do, not only for the programming, but it takes vendors like, for example, Kaiser and Blue Cross. If we tell them what the GLB decision was, it will take them 2 to 3 weeks to actually come up with final premium rates. It's a very complicated issue, and it's not something they have handy or to simply adjust a spreadsheet. It takes a lot of work.
So what would the logical response be for some of the people we've heard at our various committees that have health problems where they really need to remain connected to their existing doctor and they can't really take a 6-month or 3-month or whatever break from that? Would they have to switch to the PPO to keep their doctor? What options would they have to keep their doctor?
That was discussed at some length today at committee, but before I even answer that, to get to your first question, the issue that the woman brought up about not being able to get back in, if going for 6 months and going back, it's the first time we've heard of that issue, but we concur that is part of the negotiations. We'll certainly bring that up. I personally can't see why we can't get around that issue to let them back into their current doctor in 6 months, but it's something we'll certainly address with Blue Cross.
I'm glad that was brought up, and I'm sure that's resolvable. The bigger question is what happens in general to people during the period where the HMO is not the way we'd want it to be.
What Blue Cross described today, there are state guidelines that actually they have to follow as far as that spells out in some manner the steps that they're required to follow to transition medical care. So they weren't willing to specify a committee today exactly what conditions they would allow people to consider getting treatment from their current providers, but that is the answer they gave, which is that in their transition program, the priority is the medical care of the patient. If there are situations in which a transition would not certainly be in the best interest of the patient, they would still continue to provide medical care for up to 6 months. In some cases, probably longer, depending on the situation. And their answer was it's a case-by-case analysis. Basically, a caseworker sits with the employee, listens to what essentially their concerns are, and would make an individual decision which they could appeal. There's an appeal process as well. So the thought at committee from the committee members was, to be frank, by the time that those people still have treatment for up to 6 months and have an appeal procedure, by that time we'll probably have the full network in place.
Okay, so we're pretty confident that those folks won't wind up out in the cold. I mean, I'm a little nervous because we all know all of these companies have been sued legitimately by people that haven't had one thing or another covered, and you have to sue them. Doesn't happen often, but it happens. I could see the same thing happening if we're not really careful, that they'll be denied even though it'll be a situation where it's a very legitimate need. And, we don't want to be in the position of, our employees having to sue the provider to get the care that they really should get to begin with. Now, this sounds like a process that would help us avoid that, but I want a very solid guarantee that we don't put people in that position.
Councilmember Maggie Whalen, Personnel Department. We've had a relationship with Blue Cross, with Anthem for many, many years.
Of course.
They've been good business partners. They want to work with us. I have every reason to believe that they will avail themselves of whatever they need to do in order to make sure that our workforce is covered. So we will do everything that we can do. We also have an ad hoc committee of the Joint Labor Management members who are overseeing the transition effort. So I understand your concern and the concern of the individuals who are covered, but we will do everything that we can do to make sure that we handle this as smoothly as possible.
Okay, I will take that assurance.
Thank you.
Mr. Zine, any other
I remember
comments?
that effective 10/1/12, I made some notes last time we were here, and one of the issues was the RFP process involved in developing the plan, what other providers, open enrollment, what happens to the open enrollment. So obviously things have changed in a week. But what happens with that RFP process that we discussed last week?
We start again.
So there will be another RFP process
Yes.
regarding the healthcare. How many providers are there now in the region, other than Kaiser?
I think when we went out to bid, we had 5 responses.
5 responses?
Right.
You remember Transamerica? Remember Ross Luce?
Yes.
See, that the old days, where you
Right.
had multiple, I guess they all went out of business. Acquisition. So now you've just got a handful that run the whole show for everyone. Now, are we working with the county and what they're doing, or do they have do we have any
The
communication?
county has an entirely different program than ours.
But the vendors, do we reach out to the same vendors? Or
Yes. Yes.
Because obviously we have a lot of employees, and you think the bigger the better. I know when you insure the young folks, the costs, the hospitalization is much less than the older folks. At least that's what tradition shows us.
Oh,
You
that's,
have knee surgery and back surgery and this surgery and that surgery. But we are going to do an RFP process.
yes.
Okay. And the true cost savings, when I looked at these numbers, it showed that Kaiser plan employee is $88.76 higher than Blue Cross.
That's correct.
So are we going to try and sort those things out? Is that all part of what, we're like on a temporary hold. We're like circling the airport. We're not landing. We're still circling, and the seats are falling apart, as we know what happens on American Airlines. You watch the news. So we're not ready to land yet, but we're going to give them a period of time while we still sort this out. That would be a good summation of where we're at?
Yes.
Okay. Good job. 'Cause last week it was very angry.
Well, we had a couple of angry sessions at the Joint Labor Management Committee as well, so,
But it's nice to hear that people have gotten some satisfaction, because obviously, and then the notification, we need to do a little more on the notification. We can send every single employee, we have the capability to send them email, every single city employee. We need to utilize that so they don't get frightened in, what's happening, because obviously healthcare is a big deal for us.
right. We
Especially when
agree.
you get sick.
Yes, yes, we agree.
Okay, thank you.
So the proper motions on these items, I guess on item 2, it would be to note and file the status report from October 2nd, 2012, from the General Manager of the Personnel Department regarding the Plan Year 2013 Civilian Modified Flex Benefits Program, to approve the Plan Year 2013 Flex Benefits Plan as outlined in Attachment A of the October 2nd, 2012 report, and to authorize the Personnel Department's General Manager to execute the 4th and 5th year contract extensions with Mercer HR Services to provide third-party administrative services for the Flex Benefits Plan from June 4th, 2012 through June 3rd, 2014.
Councilmember, there are some changes on the report we submitted today, and with your permission, we'll work with the city clerk to essentially adopt the recommendations you just made, but update them with the JLMVC changes today.
Are we going to have this back in the committee when it goes to the RFP and that?
We're hoping to get this to council by next week.
Well, for this
This is-
particular phase, but the RFP and all that, is that going to be coming back here?
No,
Where's it going to go? The new one. The new one, because you're going to start doing an RFP,
we
you
don't send
mentioned.
the RFP to council.
Participates in that process, and they will review the RFP and give their input, and we hold them in public meetings so anybody can attend. And
Well, is it going to come to this committee, or is it going to go straight to council?
normally, the RFP drafts do not come to council committee.
So it goes to council?
No.
Somehow, somebody's got to approve it, because where's the savings going to be if no one's watching it?
We're using the rule of if it's, the contract is under 3 years, then that's under the mayor's purview. If the contract is over 3 years, it would be council's purview, and typically, we award 3-year contracts with 2 one-year extensions. The extensions then would come to council.
See, I'm concerned about what happens when I know Kaiser's now more than the other, which would be reversed, and if we don't review what's happening with this, and the mayor's office does, then we need to work through the mayor's office to make sure that what we get is the best value. Because the lady that was here last time from the insurance company said very clearly that we're paying basically much more than Medicare is paying, much more. And we're paying for those folks that don't have insurance and are saddling our employees and the taxpayers with that. And that's what she clearly stated. I'm concerned that we get a good deal. Because when you look at the cost, if it's costing me $100 and it's costing Medicare $50, we're paying an extra amount of money that we need to negotiate because they're willing to take what the Medicare provides at a lower level, but we're making the difference. Well, we need to make sure that our taxpayers and our employees are getting a fair shake with
And
this.
we agree with that. The Joint Labor Management Committee has introduced a number of efficiencies in our contracts over the years. So the committee itself is very aware of how important it is to be able to get the best plan for the lowest amount. So we will continue.
Because
to do
traditionally,
that.
Kaiser's lower, but in this particular case, looking at the report, Kaiser's higher.
But Kaiser's been higher for years.
Well, we need to fix that.
Okay,
So,
Hey, the money's running out, you know that, that's no question.
we understand.
so we've approved item number 2. Is there anything that we need to do under item number 1? Any action? Okay, and I don't know if there's a way to address Mr. Zion's concern. I know there's no mandatory role for this committee in the process. I wonder if there could be some advisory touch base and report at least as we go through the process.
We'd be happy to report back as to the progress that we're making on a regular basis, if you would like.
That would be great.
Probably quarterly would be better.
Well, the CAO is going to do some analysis. I mean, if it's not going to this committee, it's not going to council, it's going straight to the mayor's office. I got a concern that if we didn't have this meeting last week, there were a lot of city employees, especially on the city attorney's office, that wouldn't have had a voice. And we need to make sure that as you go through with this new review, they have a voice. And if it's not coming here and it's going straight to the mayor's office, not to council, I got a concern about
If I could clarify, council member, it's a little confusing, but I have to go back to the analogy that everybody seems to understand. In the benefits arena, the mayor's office is responsible for picking the vendors through the contract process, and I say basically the mayor can pick the car. The council is responsible for approving the plan design. The council on that car determines essentially what engine it has, if it has white wall tires, if it's air conditioning, but that's the way it usually breaks out. The mayor has control over who the vendors are.
But see, the mayor's leaving. We're going to get a new mayor. And
If I may, council member, I think what you're
I know what you like
asking,
first.
I think what you're asking for, or what would perhaps resolve your concern, is to have a report back on the RFP process, so that before it's finalized, this committee has an opportunity to hear what the plan design issues are.
And then we can let the employees know, because I don't want to we talk about transparency. While we have some rules and regulations, we need to be open and honest. And they've already been frightened by what they heard, and that's what happened last week.
Right.
So I think to assure them that we are going to be honest and credible, that we bring it to a review. And if we don't argue it here, then we'll go argue at the mayor's office, and we'll argue it everywhere. But I'm just saying, somebody's going to try and get the best deal for the taxpayers as well as the best deal for our employees.
We'll be glad to provide the committee, as Maggie said, with an update prior to the release of the RFP. The RFP will contain a series of options from 1 to, let's say, 20 of plan design options that vendors will quote. The plan design decisions are made after, but those will also come to council. But again, we'll brief you before the RFP is released, and you'll be well aware of what the RFP is asking.
And we'll have the CAO analyzed also? Why not?
Well, the CAO is part of the JLMBC, so.
Well, that's where the problem is.
So we appreciate that. I think that'll be the way to help the situation. I know we've continued item 7. We had one speaker on that item. I don't know if they're present. James and Tanya Mackey. Are they present?
I don't think so.
I don't believe so, so that item will just be continued. We have one speaker from the public who I don't believe is still here, Phyllis Dougherty. So there being no items and no remaining speakers, we are adjourned.